While we need binding international agreements and a lead from governments, we all have to play our own part in fighting climate change. For myself, I've made 2 pledges, one to make 1 in 4 of all the many journeys I have to make with my work by train rather than flying, and secondly, that every time I vote in Parliament, I will give priority to fighting climate change. And this reminds me that as politicians, we have to be bold to face up to the challenges that face us. I actually got involved in environmental issues before I even got involved in party politics. And I suppose that my first political action was when I was in school, and I'd seen a documentary on television about how the killing of whales was endangering the species. I mean the mammals now, not the country. That came later on. It disturbed me so much that I wrote my first letter and I signed my first petition. And little did I think at that time that that action would lead to what I'm doing today. It raised my own awareness that we all have a responsibility and a duty to act, however insignificant it seemed that doing that was at the time. It was doing something, and doing something is always better than doing nothing, but it also does make a difference. Because doing that small thing for me led to more and more involvement, to me joining Plaid Cymru, which is, of course, the natural home for people who care about the environment and what we now call sustainability, not living today as though the planet belonged to us without thinking of future generations. And I soon realised that the campaigns I supported locally, like the campaign to get rid of a dangerous coal tip in the Rhondda, was the same campaign as the one for the global environment. You often hear the slogan, think global, act local, but it's truer today than it ever was. I've just had my attic insulated. You might think, what's that got to do with this conference? But it's a good thing to do, of course, in terms of energy efficiency anyway. But I stopped and thought before doing it about the best environmental way I could have it done. And so I had it insulated with sheep's wool from a factory that's just been established in Rhyl, thanks to the Assembly Government, particularly the Economic Development Minister, Ieuan McJones. It's not only that it's a natural product, and of course we've got no shortage of sheep in Wales, but it was also easier to install and just as effective as the alternative. It was a bit more expensive financially, but the alternative is 1 million times more expensive in environmental terms. And I'm proud, very proud of the record of Plaid Cymru councils in moving forward the environmental agenda. We've heard from Lindsay about Caerphilly, but in Caerphilly too, Plaid offered incentives to builders who would build homes with better insulation and use green energy. And Gwynedd has a green transport strategy, which includes things like lift sharing schemes and supported video conferencing. The 2006 Living in Wales survey for the Assembly showed that 81% of households are now recycling paper, glass, plastic or cans. And even 30% of people had cut down on using the car for short journeys. So people do want to change, people want to make a difference. And one of the issues that affects so many of us in Wales is waste. And this is where our councillors have had and do have real influence. It was the Plaid Cymru Council in Rhondda Cynon Taf that closed the Nantygwyddon landfill site, as we had promised to do. We introduced one of the first curbside recycling schemes in its place. We made one of the worst recycling authorities into one of the best. And the closure of the tip, you might remember, was helped by a petition that I put to the European Parliament. And at the moment, in the Parliament, we are debating new waste laws, and we're trying to get a 50% target for recycling household waste by because the amount of waste that we produce is going to grow by a quarter, again in Europe, by 2020. If we achieve that 50% cut, if we achieve that 50% target of recycling, It would save 247 million tonnes of carbon dioxide every year. That's the equivalent of taking 87 million cars off the road every year. And speaking of cars, I'd like to refer again to our Economic Development Minister, Ieuan Wyn-Jones, and congratulate him for rejecting the proposed A494 7-lane road in Flintshire on environmental grounds. But while we need to improve our recycling rates, the first priority must be to stop increasing the waste. We must stabilise waste and set targets to reduce it. And even stabilising waste would save us over 1 billion tonnes of greenhouse gases by 2020. We have to stop churning out waste and then having to deal with the problem of how to get rid of it. Because it's a scandal that so many communities in Wales suffer from the effects of our waste policies now. And next week, I'll be welcoming campaigners to Brussels from the Harvard Environmental Group, who'll be coming to put their case to Parliament against the landfill site near Wrexham, where they've been running a very effective, high-profile campaign, and I wish them every success. Campaigners against the LNG terminal and pipeline in Wales will be coming back to give further evidence in the same Petitions Committee meeting next week. And actually at the same time there are some AMs coming over from the Assembly to see how our Petitions Committee works, so there's going to be a bit of a Wales takeover in the European Parliament next week. The dedication and the commitment of these environmental groups who will not give up the fight and who are taking their case to the highest levels is a reflection of the strength of feeling all over Wales. For decades, Plaid Cymru talked about the importance of our environment, and people used to take little notice. But the environmental debate crystallises everything that we believe and everything we stand for as a party. It means keeping communities alive, keeping post offices open, supporting agriculture and the rural economy, opposing nuclear weapons, greening the valleys, creating new jobs, securing the future of our languages and fighting poverty. Plaid Cymru has long recognised that the fight for the future of Wales was at one with fighting for the future of our planet. And that's true now more than ever. Our role is to bring together and provide leadership to the forces who work for local and global justice. We are starting a debate with the people of Wales on the future of our nation and its role on the international stage. The same kind of debate that's taking place in smaller countries across Europe, like Scotland, the Basque Country, Flanders and others. And that debate will result in change which is critically needed to meet the global challenges that we face. We are helping to create a different and a better future. A future where every nation is equal and where every person is equal and where Wales can play its full part. A future where we work together to ensure our very survival. Time is running out. Diolch.